Hello guys and welcome to my second AS+2 Offtanking guide. I'm remaking this because the last one only focused on the changes in the Wrathstone patch and it didn't really help you if you were totally new to Offtanking. So this time the video will be packed full of all the information you need regardless of whether you're experienced or not. To start off with, we're going to look at the mini-bosses and their mechanics. So firstly, we're going to take a look at Saint Lothis the Pious, aka the Poison Boss. He has 10,350,000 health, and he spawns after the first kite. So when the boss reaches 90% health, he does the Gusts of Steam, the jumps, where he jumps 4 times across the room. About 3 seconds later, there is a kite, and then when that kite finishes, Lothis is going to spawn. That's when you need to watch out for him. He has a 3-minute enrage timer, just like the other mini-boss, and after the first stack of enrage, when he hits the 3-minute mark, he will gain 1 additional stack of enrage every 20 seconds after the first. Lothis's standard attack is a ranged poison bolt that also hits allies next to you if they're stood close enough. If you look at the background image right now, you can see the blue AoE circle underneath me. That's the blue AoE circle from the Lothis poison bolt. So if I'm stood next to anyone, the poison bolt is also going to hit them. The first special ability is called Defiling Blast, aka the Poison Cone, which happens roughly every 22 seconds. It targets a random player and deals heavy damage, while also applying a healing debuff. Other players that are not targeted by the cone, but are stood inside the AoE, will take more damage than the target. It's possible for the target to survive the cone without blocking, but anyone else inside the AoE that isn't targeted will need to block in order to survive unless you have a shield up. The next special ability is called Oppressive Bolts. It's an ability that will cause every player within range to be hit by a poison bolt every second. It does about 10k damage per second to everyone within range unless it gets interrupted. He does that roughly every 12 to 15 seconds. And the final thing you need to know about Lothis is that roughly every 30 seconds he will teleport to one of 4 specific places in the room randomly. So if you think about where the main boss, Ohms, stands normally, he can either teleport next to Ohms on the left hand side or on the right hand side, and then in the back of the room, either on the left hand side or on the right hand side. They're the 4 places he can teleport to. Once Lothis reaches 1 stack of Enrage, Oppressive Bolts will one-shot DDs unless they get blocked or dodged, and you should be aware when Lothis is enraged, do not stand next to DDs or run through the DDs because the Poison Bolt attacks, if they're within that small AoE circle, will one-shot them. And when he gets to 2 stacks of Enrage, the cone will start one-shotting people as well, so you need to basically roll dodge everything or die. Next up is the second mini-boss called St. Felms the Bold, aka the Nightblade boss. He also has 10.35 million health and shares a 3-minute enrage timer. Like Lothis, he also gains 1 additional stack of enrage for every 20 seconds after the first. So at 3 minutes he will be stack 1 enraged, at 3 minutes and 20 seconds he will be stack 2 enraged, 3 minutes and 40, etc, etc. Felms spawns after or during the first kite after the 75% jump from the main boss. So the main boss does the second Gusts of Steam mechanic at 75% health. Following that there will be a kite, roughly 3 to 5 seconds afterwards, depending on timing of other mechanics. And either during or after that kite, that is when Felms will spawn. He will always spawn on the left side of where Ohms is. The Nightblade's standard attack is a melee attack which applies a bleed effect and maim. Maim reduces your damage done by 50% for 15 seconds. So it cuts your damage in half. It's very, very important that you never let Felms loose on the DDs. You always keep him taunted, because if he ever hits one of the DDs, they lose half of their damage for 15 seconds, which is a huge debuff. Always keep him taunted whenever you can. The first ability for Felms is called Manifest Wrath. He creates 2 AoE effects on the ground that after about 2 seconds will explode, and each AoE will send out 3 red waves in a random direction. They also apply Maim to anybody hit. So everybody who can should try to avoid those Manifest Wrath red lines or waves. The second ability that Felms has is called Teleport Strike. He teleports to the furthest person away and leaves a large AoE circle on the ground, which gradually applies a ramping up bleed damage over time effect, which also applies Maim. He then repeats that another 2 times, jumping on the furthest person away each time. Once the jump ends, there is approximately 14 seconds before he starts doing the next jump again. When he has 1 stack of Enrage, Manifest Wrath will one-shot DDs even through block, so avoid those red waves at all costs. And when he gets to 2 or 3 stacks of Enrage, the healers will start dying to Teleport Strike, and you as the off-tank will start dying to the melee bleed effect. So try to avoid Felms being enraged. When either of these 2 mini-bosses die, so that's either Lothis or Felms, they will sit on the ground doing nothing for 45 seconds, but after those 45 seconds are up, they'll come back to life again, they'll have full health, and the enrage timer will be reset to 0. So first of all, what do you need as an off-tank in AS+2? Number 1 on your list is going to be the Asylum Sanctorium status panel add-on, assuming you're playing on PC, because it gives you these timers for the enrage of Lothis and Felms. These timers start at 0 and count upwards, turning yellow when the enrage is about to happen and red when the enrage has already happened. As you can see in this clip here, Lothis is 16 seconds away from his enrage, so the timer's turned yellow. That tells me that we need to make sure Lothis dies ASAP. He already has low health, so I'm not worried about the enrage, but if he was at 50% health instead of 7% health, I would be calling out right now for everyone to full focus Lothis and ignore spheres. You need to use the timers and continually look at the boss's health percentages to call out to your group what they need to do and make your own decisions on whether to stack the mini-bosses or not. For example, if Lothis has 20% health left, but still has 1 minute and 30 seconds left on his enrage timer, I would stop stacking Lothis completely. You don't want to kill mini-bosses early, because then they get back up earlier, and you might end up having to kill them more than once, or additional times unnecessarily. If Lothis is at 50% health and still has 1 minute and 30 seconds left on his enrage timer, that means he's half dead and he has half the time left on his timer, so that's basically perfect. In that situation, you wouldn't need to call out to focus him, and you wouldn't need to stop stacking him either because he's not dying too quickly. Just keep doing what you had been doing, and theoretically he should die at exactly the same amount of time that it would take him to enrage. The same concept of looking at health percentages and time remaining applies to Felms as well. The next add-on, if you're on PC, that will help you a lot is called Asylum Tracker, specifically for the on-screen warnings that you can see here for the Lothis Blast and Bolts abilities. Bolts is important because if you're in range, you can help to interrupt, and Blast is important because while he's doing the poison cone, he won't move and you can't stack him. What do I mean exactly when I talk about stacking Felms and stacking Lothis? Well, here's a clip in the background and I'm going to give you a little bit of a voiceover on what I'm doing. I might have to pause it at certain points in the fight, and I might also go silent at certain points in the fight, just depending on what's going on, whether there's loads of stuff happening or whether there's not very much happening. Right now, main boss jump, I run to the opposite side of the room to apply minor maim and engulfing flames, just so it doesn't run out while the boss is jumping. The main tank then refreshes it on the opposite side, so we keep up the damage and we keep up the minor maim debuff, so the DDs take less damage. During the kite, you can either stand under the boss like this, close enough that you don't get lightning AoEs coming towards you, or you can run around like a headless chicken like the DDs do. Right now, you can see that Lothis has spawned and I taunted him. I'm now going to run to the opposite side of the boss to where he currently is, to outrange him and bring him right on top of the main boss, basically. That's how you stack Lothis. Lothis will always do the Poison Cone ability about 5 seconds after he spawns, so if you want to stack him before he does that, you do need to react very quickly. Right now we're about to get the 75% jump. Lothis ports away and then does his cone. Because he's doing the cone, I can't stack him, but I did refresh my taunt and moved into position so that he will move when the cone finishes. We've now got the Kite after 75%, which means Felms is spawning very imminently. I'm going to refresh my taunt on Lothis, and then I'm going to run to the opposite side, ready for Felms spawning, because I don't want him hitting any of the DDs and applying that maim debuff. I'm helping with interrupts here and there whenever I can, because I'm never 100% sure that the interrupter can get the interrupt. I had the option to stack Lothis here, but I decided not to, because I noticed there was 1 minute and 50 seconds left on the enrage timer, and if you look at Lothis's health bar right now, you can see it's very, very low. He's took a lot of damage already, so I'm just focusing on Felms now. Keep Felms in the middle, let the DDs cleave Felms while they focus the main boss, and I'm going to keep Lothis out so that he doesn't die too early. Right now I couldn't stack under the main boss to avoid the kite, so I had to run around a little bit. I took a bit of damage but kept myself alive. Keeping the taunt on Lothis even though I'm not stacking him, just so he's not attacking random people, and then bring Felms back in so he can be cleaved a little bit more. Notice now that Felms only has 2 minutes left. It's been 1 minute already and he's taken very little damage, so that helps me realise for future stacking purposes that I need to prioritise Felms a little bit. So I'm going to prioritise Felms. Lothis still has 45 seconds left and his health is pretty low, so I'm going to think about stacking him very shortly, maybe not just yet. Probably the next time he teleports I'm going to stack Lothis. He's still taking a little bit of damage from cleave where he is right now, but not enough to kill him, and now is a good time to stack Lothis. So I'm going to refresh my taunt on Felms, make sure he doesn't go rampant among the DDs, maiming everyone, and then run into a position where he can be stacked. And he dies pretty much perfectly on time. Right now, 2 minutes and 52 seconds. That's about when you want Lothis to die, just before he enrages ideally. All the time while keeping Felms stacked as much as possible. Right now Felms has 50 seconds left and he is very high health. You can see his animations kind of bugging out right now. I've got no idea what's going on. But right now I call for everyone to focus Felms and ignore the sphere, so hopefully you should see everyone switch to Felms. Some people are getting reses, unfortunately, so the damage on him isn't very good and he just ports again. 30 seconds left, now we really need to prioritise Felms. He jumps on the front kiter twice, so I have to go to a different place to refresh my taunt on him. Now, everyone focuses Felms, Lothis comes back up. Taunt Lothis before he teleports, because when he gets back up he's going to teleport about 10-15 seconds afterwards. So just make sure you get him taunted as soon as possible. Felms enraging any second, which is unfortunate, but we had a few deaths, so couldn't really be avoided. I'm not going to stack Lothis right now because Felms is enraged. It's really important that we kill Felms right now. Much more important than stacking Lothis. We've got loads of time left on Lothis. So I call for everyone to execute Felms, and he dies. As soon as he dies, I can stack Lothis, although Lothis is about to teleport anyway because he's been stood there for quite a while already. Yep, there we go, teleported. And I've still got taunt duration left on Lothis, so I don't need to retaunt him, I don't think. Although I decide, because he did the cone, I come in and retaunt him before I do the stack. Watch out for those lightning AoEs when you go in front of the boss to stack Lothis. But when Felms is dead, it's just a case of keeping aggro on one boss and moving into different places to stack him. Pretty simple when you don't have Felms alive. But Felms is about to come back up right now. So while he's doing the jumps, I'm going to stack Lothis. If possible, as you saw right there, I'm going to taunt Felms while he's in the middle of the jumps, because then I don't have to worry about him running around hitting DDs. If you can taunt him during the jumps, that's amazing. Right now, I taunt the main boss by accident, so I move in front of the main boss and forget about stacking the minis for a second just to make sure the main tank has aggro. It turns out the main tank doesn't have aggro, so I stay here until he tells me that he does. Still have aggro there. And I go back out and I retaunt as fast as possible. I don't think anyone got maimed by Felms there. It was close though. Lothis ports away, but I decide we're going to prioritise stacking Felms because he didn't take very much damage last time. Lothis has 45 seconds left, which is not very long, but his health is also reasonably low, so I'm not too worried about Lothis. I stack Lothis here while Felms is doing the jumps, and then perfect timing, by the time Felms comes back, Lothis is stacked nicely. Felms jumps, while Felms is jumping, perfect time to stack Lothis. Although because he's about to enrage, it makes sense for the DDs to just focus him where he is because he has such little health left. It's just going to be a few executes and then he's dead. And now, because we're in the execute phase and Lothis is dead, I tell the healer who's kiting in the back to just go into the group and start healing, and I start kiting the Felms jumps. Right now Felms isn't jumping, so I can come into the group, throw some purges for the fire, retaunt Felms, and then get ready for the next jump again in 2 seconds. Lothis is about to come up, so I'm going to retaunt Felms when he jumps on me, and then get ready to get the interrupt. Bang, interrupted, retaunt Lothis. Felms is going to run straight to me just because I retaunted him while he jumped on me, and then we don't need to focus the mini bosses anymore. The boss is going to die in time, so I just bring all the mini bosses away, try and get all the interrupts on Lothis. If I can't get the interrupts on Lothis, I'm going to call out for the interruptor to get them. Otherwise I'm just going to stand here and bash him all day long so that he can't get any of those casts through. Come into the group, spam some purges while Felms isn't jumping, and then move with Lothis to make sure I get the interrupt again. This time I was a little bit slow, but I got it in the end, and nobody died to it, I don't think. And that's it. That's how you off-tank Asylum +2. You need to be looking constantly at the timers of the mini-bosses, the health percentages of the mini-bosses, and prioritise what you are going to stack. It's a test of multitasking, basically. And when you try to do it for the first time, you can feel massively out of your depth just because there is sometimes so many things to do and think about at the same time. But trust me, with practice and experience, you'll start feeling a lot more comfortable. You just need a group that's flexible and willing to let you learn. The group needs to understand that while you're learning, the stacks aren't going to be perfect, the interrupts aren't going to be perfect. But once you have that experience, some of it will just become second nature. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Cheers guys, see ya.